Breaking the Ice is a really sweet, if a little chilly episode of Frasier. This is the 20th episode of the second season, it's directed by Philip Charles MacKenzie, and there will be spoilers from now as I discuss various parts of the narrative. And it starts off down at KCL. Roz is saying that she accidentally said I love you to somebody, and Frasier reveals that Martin has never said I love you to him, which I think is quite interesting, and we do come back to that, and it becomes the main focus of the narrative. Back at Frasier's apartment, Martin's really excited. He's supposed to be going ice fishing with Duke. Duke phones up and unfortunately has to cancel because I think he had a sore back again, if I remember rightly. And Frasier kind of refuses to acknowledge that Martin wants him to go with him, but Niles says that he'll go. And eventually Frasier ends up saying that he'll go as well. And this is largely because Martin said I love you to Eddie. Now, he actually said, I love ya, which he also said to Duke. But Frasier still thinks that this is not that different to saying I love you. And the fact that he'd never said it to Frasier meant that he wanted to go on this fishing trip with him to try and work out what this was all about. And hopefully his father will say it to him. I love the fact that he's jealous of Eddie. We do get a nice amount of Eddie in this. He doesn't do that many tricks, but we do just get a lot of screen time with Eddie, which is always something that I adore. Then the bulk of the episode is set in this little cabin, and it's a very small enclosed space. If you have claustrophobia, it's not going to be great, but it comes across as being very, very chilly, but also very cozy. And I don't know if that makes a lot of sense, but it's because it is a small space. They're all huddled up close together and they've got a lot of layers on, and it is very atmospheric, and I really felt like I was there. There's one point where they open the door and it's like I could feel the rush of wind that came in. It was just brilliantly done and very, very cold, but very effective. And Frasier is grumbling the entire time. But I really loved Niles' enthusiasm, and one thing that's really great about Niles is that he loves learning. He loves opportunities for new experiences, even if it takes him outside of his comfort zone, and this is exactly what we get here. It's great to see the contrasting approaches with both of the brothers. Martin is still having a pretty good time. Unfortunately, not everything is plain sailing because Niles realizes there's a hole in his pocket and he's lost the keys. And he actually finds the keys about 30 seconds later, throws them to Frasier. They actually drop down the hole where they're ice fishing. And they're kind of stuck there, and they begin to worry that they're going to be stuck in the cabin overnight, so they start drinking a lot to keep warm. And because they're drinking, they start to relax a bit more. They have this really great sing-song. It is so lovely seeing Martin, Frasier and Niles all having a great time together. But they also have a heart-to-heart. And Martin ultimately says, I love you to both of his sons, and they say it back, and it's just the sweetest thing ever. And I think this episode might be relatable for a lot of people, as I know that it is very stereotypical, but there are a lot of men, I think certainly of an older generation, who just don't say, I love you to their children. It's just not how they were brought up. And that's kind of instilled in them. And I think a lot of people will be able to relate to this. And I think regardless of what side you're on, whether you're somebody who's never been told I love you, or if you're somebody who doesn't say it, I think there are things to be learned here, whether that's the fact that you need to realize that your children probably need to hear it, but also if somebody doesn't say it to you, it doesn't necessarily mean they don't love you. It might just be a product of their upbringing, and this is exactly what we get here, and I think it's beautifully done and so moving. And then the final scene is everybody returning from this fishing trip with their fish, and Daphne's greeting them, and then Niles has his tiny little single fish, but he gets a kiss on the cheek, so it's not too bad. It's a really sweet episode. I really enjoyed it. It's very atmospheric. It's very chilly. It just so happens that it's currently hailstoning outside while I was watching this, so I definitely felt very cold, but very, very beautiful episode. Funny, but also heartfelt, and definitely a real credit to the series.